bringing in guys like Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, Teoscar Hernandez, Tanner Scott, Clayton Kershaw, my mother, my father, my brother, everybody you could possibly imagine. This is episode number 60 of Hitting for the Cycle. That's Ben Kruse. I'm Ryan Touhey. And pitchers and catchers have reported to Florida and Arizona for spring training. And we're that much closer to the start of the regular season. And it's an exciting time if you're a baseball fan. So, Ben, how are you doing?
I'm having a great morning, Ryan. And we could talk about it a little bit later on. I know you're probably not liking the news, but I'm more in a state of shock than anything. Folks, Alex Bregman has officially found his new home. So I'm having a great morning. How are you?
I wonder where that is. It's a big mystery. We'll eventually talk about that topic later on, but before we get to that or anything else, we just want to remind everybody to please follow Hitting for the Cycle on Facebook, X, and Instagram at HFTC ETB. Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network. Follow our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB Network. And finally, listen to us on whatever platforms you listen to your podcasts on.
Yep, and folks, as always, this episode is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. We're supposed to this weekend have some playback stuff for the NBA. It's been a little while since we've had that. So make sure to tune in specifically to all of our socials to get more about that stuff. We cannot wait. It's been a while. So, yeah, everything presented by Playback here for today.
All right, so in our previous episode, we went over our American League predictions for 2025 and compared and contrasted those with PECOTA. And now this week, we're going to be doing the National League side of things, which might be a little more challenging for at least for two divisions. So let's get into it. So let's go over the National League East first. So I looked at PECOTA's National League East division projected standings for 2025. And they have the Braves winning the division with at least around 93 wins, 92.8 simulated wins, 69.2 simulated losses. In second place, they have the Mets at around 91 and 71. In third place, they have the defending NL East champion Phillies at 85 and 77. In fourth place, they have the Washington Nationals at 67 and 95. And finally, and last, to the surprise of nobody, they have the Marlins at 62 and 100. And after looking at these standings, I'd say this is pretty accurate from the way that I feel as well. For me, everybody's in the same spot. I have, for my predictions, I have the Braves winning the National League East this year at 95 and 67. I have the Mets finishing second at 93 and 69. I have the Phillies in third at 88 and 74. I have the Nats in fourth, but I have them at 82 and 80. And last are the Marlins at 63 and 99. So going into this upcoming season, there are expectations for the Braves, obviously, to get back on top of the National League East. The Braves, they didn't really make too many moves this offseason. They brought in guys like Jurickson Profar and Brian De La Cruz. They obviously lost Max Fried to the Yankees, Jorge Soler, Travis d'Arnaud, Charlie Moore, and a bunch of role players. They haven't lost any superstars. But obviously the big question mark that the Braves have heading into this season is what are they going to get out of everybody after just an injury-plagued 2024? Is everybody going to be able to return to the level that they were at prior to getting hurt? Obviously, the big name coming back is Ronald Acuna. who is coming back after another ACL injury. His second in like 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
You wonder if this is going to affect him for the long haul and if he's ever going to be the same player. Ozzie Albies had some injury problems last year. Austin Riley, I believe, went down too. So, a lot of guys are coming back from very serious injuries, and you just wonder if the Braves are going to be able to pick up where they left off like 2 years ago when they were the National League East champions. Like I said, I have the Phillies in second, like PECOTA, and the Mets. Or did I say? I think I said the Phillies. The Mets I have finishing in second place.
Second.
Like PECOTA. The Mets obviously, went out and got Juan Soto, signing him to that humongous contract, the biggest contract in sports history. They also just re-signed the Polar Bear Pete Alonso to a 2-year deal. They also brought in guys like Clay Holmes. They re-signed Sean Manaea, re-signed Jesse Winker. So the Mets, obviously, their big question mark is going to be more so of their pitching rather than their hitting. I mean, bringing back Alonso, I think is huge. I think having another bat in that lineup along with guys like Soto and Lindor can only help them. But it really just depends on how their pitching holds up this season. In third place are the defending NL East champion Phillies. The Phillies didn't really do too much this offseason other than bring in guys like Jesus Luzardo and Max Kepler. They lost Jeff Hoffman, Austin Hayes, and Carlos Estevez. The Phillies, I think the Phillies are still a good team, but they're getting up there in age, and I just don't think the moves that they made this offseason are really going to help them get far in the postseason, even if they were to qualify for the postseason. I just don't see them doing anything that much differently this year in the playoffs. I don't see them as a World Series team, at least not now. I mean, maybe we'll see how the regular season plays out, but I think they're a good team, but I don't think they have enough. In fourth place are the Nationals, who are rebuilding, trying to get back to respectability. Some acquisitions that they made this offseason were bringing in Nathaniel Lau from the Rangers, Michael Soroka. They re-signed Josh Bell. Also brought in guys like Ahmad Rosario and Trevor Williams. So the Nationals, I think, are on the right track, but I still think they're at least a year or two away from contending. But I could see them at least making a lot of progress this season. Like I said, I have them at 82 and 80. I don't know if they'll finish above 500 necessarily, but that's just my prediction. So, but I think the Nationals, they got some things to look forward to. And finally, in last place are the Miami Marlins, who really don't have anything to look forward to other than Sandy Alcantara coming back from Tommy John surgery this season. So that's how I think. That's how I feel about the National League East. I do agree with PECOTA's predictions in terms of the standings. Even though I have the Braves winning the National League East this season, I'm still a little ambivalent towards them just because of all the injuries that the guys have had over the last year and they're coming back from. So, Ben, I'll pass the microphone over to you. How do you feel about the National League East this year?
Yeah, it should be a really good division. You have 4 teams. I mean, obviously, I feel like the Nationals are still a couple years away, but they're going to be a force. I think the next couple of years. I mean, they obviously called up Dylan Cruz this past year. James Woods is really kind of coming into his own. And yeah, they got pieces over there. But for me, so obviously there's a couple of things that PECOTA obviously had that I disagree with. I am going to do kind of a 180 for me, and I think both teams are going to go neck and neck. But I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Phillies as my National League East division winner. The Phillies, I still think, have a very, very solid core. Harper, Turner, Castellanos, Alec Boehm. I think the addition as well as Jesus Luzardo kind of goes under the radar as well. And I'm just a very big believer in having a really good rotation, a really good one, at least a really good 1-2, but a really good 1 through 3. And you have that with Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and now Jesus Luzardo. I do think that their bullpen could be a little bit better. I mean, losing Jeff Hoffman is a big loss. They still have Alvarado. They did bring in Jordan Romano, but Romano's obviously kind of a wild card right now. But I just think that their lineup and their starting pitching to me is the reason why that I have them at number one. The Braves obviously are going to be, I think, a bounce back. I mean, I know we predicted the Braves obviously last year. I think both of us had them at the top. They just obviously were very decimated with injuries. I don't know if you did mention, but the return of Spencer Strider is going to also be a massive part
I forgot
um,
about that.
to the Braves. Yeah, it just adds a lot of an element to the rotation. And to be fair, I mean, their rotation did a pretty good job without Spencer Strider, and that was one thing that I was kind of worried about. I mean, obviously, my guy Chris Sale having out of a resurgence because of course, right? You know, he went to a new team and he turned into an NL Cy Young candidate, which I'm very happy for Sale. 18-3 last year. I mean, who would have thought that? They also have Ronaldo Lopez, who did pretty good for them. Spencer Schwellenbach, a really good pitcher, kind of under the radar as well. And now you have Spencer Strider. So I think that their rotation's pretty solid. I just am curious specifically about their health, their durability. There's a lot of guys in their rotation to me. I mean, Sale, of course, has it. Strider obviously is coming off of it, so you don't really know specifically. He'll be good, but Schwellenbach, can he specifically continue that same type of success that he had from last year? I think, like I said, I think they'll be a good team. I think with Acuna coming back as well, Riley should be coming back. Obviously, Riley wasn't great last year, but I do think that he, at least for his standards, but I think he'll be back to what he was. Michael Harris, very good team. And they also brought Brian De La Cruz as well, which is a really good bat too. So I got the Braves at number two. And then I got the Mets at three. And that's kind of, you might be asking me in terms of why. The reason being is because their rotation. I just don't specifically when I look at the three teams, the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets. I look at probably the Phillies rotation as my specific one that I like the most. And then the Braves, I think, have a very good rotation, but they have a lot of injuries, at least kind of screaming to me specifically, but they have a very good team. And then I think with the Mets, getting Soto should help a lot. They should definitely be a playoff team for sure. I think the Mets are going to be a wild card team. But yeah, the rotation. I mean, Clay Holmes, you're going to have to make him become a starter. That's going to be very interesting. Senga's obviously had a bunch of injury problems, but when Senga's on, he's going to help a lot. Frankie Montas, I don't really know how to feel about that personally. Anaya should help a lot. Really the 1-2 I think is pretty good, but besides that, there's a lot of questions. Blackburn's kind of a wild card. He's kind of up and down. Griffin Canyon's kind of more of a back-end depth piece, which I think is be okay. So I got the Mets at 3, and then I got the Nationals at 4, and then obviously the Marlins at 5. So those are my my order specifically. Got the Phillies at 1, the Braves at 2, the Mets at 3, the Nationals at 4, and the Marlins at 5.
Yeah, I could see that too. It was mostly the division winner that was a little challenging for me to decide. I mean, I could see any one of those three teams, Phillies, Braves, or Mets winning the National League East this year. It just really depends on how everything plays out, obviously, throughout the course of the season. And, like you mentioned, the Braves, obviously have dominated the National League East for years. And last year was the first time that they didn't win the division since 2017. So, I mean, yeah, they have the talent, but it really just depends on how everybody plays when they return. And, I mean, all these teams have a big question mark over their head heading into this season. So it should make for an interesting year in the National League East, and we'll see which teams play better than others and where they finish. It's going to be a dogfight, though, I think, for those top 3 spots in the NL East. So those are our National League East predictions. Now we'll move over to the National League Central, which has been just dominated by the Milwaukee Brewers for like the past decade or so.
Yeah.
The Brewers have continuously.
You wouldn't think it, though, after their regular season, what they do.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, people don't really care what their regular season numbers are because they just have not gone far in the postseason. However, I don't see the Brewers winning the National League Central this year. So Pacoda's predictions for this season are the Cubs in first, at 90 and 72. The Brewers in second at 81 all. The Cardinals in third at 79 and 83. 79 and 80, 83. 79 and 83. Can't do math. The Pirates in 77 and 84. I'm sorry. The Brewers in fourth at 75 and 87, and the Reds in fifth at 74 and 88. So that's Pacoda's predictions. Mine, I have the Cubs winning the National League Central this year at 91 and 71. In second place, this is going to be a gamble. I'm going Cincinnati. I'm going 88 and 74. For third place, this is another gamble. I have the Cardinals at 85 and 77. I don't know about that. The Brewers I have in fourth at 84 and 78. And the Pirates in fifth at 77 and 85. Now, I got some explaining to do as to why I picked the Cardinals in third place. The reason why I picked the Cardinals in third place is because they're the Cardinals. And I just feel that, they're not going to be a bad team for forever. I think they'll take baby steps getting back to respectability. I don't really expect too much from them this season. And I think letting go of guys like Paul Goldschmidt, and they're still in talks with other teams to try and trade Nolan Arenado. I do think that, obviously, those guys are, a little past their prime. And I think that giving the young guys a chance, I think it'll help them out. And I think that the Cardinals will benefit from that and seeing what they have in the farm system. The Cardinals also, I'm just looking at some of their off-season moves right here. So they didn't really make any off-season moves. So maybe
they're trying to sell more than add, to be honest.
Yeah, they did more selling than adding this season. So maybe the Cardinals I could be completely wrong on this. I wouldn't be shocked if I am. Like I said, the only reason I picked them to have a decent season is I just feel like they're one of these stories that, they're one of these teams where, you go on with no expectations for them. And they kind of just exceed them and just don't go anywhere. But I'll give them that story. So that's why I have them in third. I have the Cubs winning the National League Central Division. I really like what they did in the offseason. Obviously, the Kyle Tucker move I thought was huge for them. Also, I like bringing in guys like Matthew Boyd, even though he has injury problems in the past. I think Ryan Pressly is a nice addition for them. They definitely added to their pitching staff, both their rotation and their bullpen. So, yeah, I think the Cubs are going to claim their first NL Central title since 2017. So I think they'll get back to the top in the NL Central. In second place, I said the Reds. And I know Pacoda has them in last, but I don't think you should sleep on the Reds. I think the big thing that you need to look at when it comes to the Reds is who's at the helm, steering the ship. Terry Francona. I think he's the right guy for the job. Some of the notable acquisitions for the Reds are mostly in their pitching department, Nick Martinez and Brady Singer, but they also brought in Gavin Lux from the Dodgers and Taylor Rogers. They also signed Austin Hayes to a one-year deal. So, I think the Reds are really going to start showing signs of improvement this season. I think that Francona is going to gel this team together and trying to get the Reds back to respectability. The Reds haven't really had much success, for a long time. And I think Francona is the right guy for the job. So I'll give second place to the Reds. In fourth place, I have the Brewers. The Brewers lost Willie Adonis to free agency. They traded Devin Williams. And they also lost guys like Frankie Montas, Gary Sanchez. Those guys are all right, but they're nothing crazy. And then they lost a bunch of role players. The biggest names that they lost were Adonis and Williams, which are huge names. So that's definitely going to hurt them. They brought in Nestor Cortez, who they made the trade with the Yankees in the Devin Williams deal. They brought in Grant Anderson in a trade with the Rangers, and then they also brought in pitchers like Elvin Rodriguez, Tyler Alexander, Grant Wolfram. I don't know anything about these guys. So I think the Brewers are going to take a step back this year. I think their contending window is about to close, and I think they're going to have to do some rebuilding beginning this season and in the coming years. So I think the Brewers' reign of supremacy in the NL Central comes to an end this season. And lastly, Pirates in fifth. Pirates are going through a never-ending rebuilding phase. They have re-signed Andrew McCutchen to a one-year deal. This could be McCutchen's swan song, possibly. They also brought in Tommy Pham, Spencer Horwitz, and Caleb Ferguson, Tim Meza. However, I think that no matter what happens this season with the Pirates, all people are going to be caring about when it comes to them is Paul Skeens. So I just don't see really much hope for the Pirates in terms of contending this season. They still have their work cut out for them. So that's how I feel about the National League Central. Where do you stand?
Okay, so I'm going to be a little different as well on this one. But yeah, there's not really, to me, like a perennial favorite. Where you kind of look at specifically a lot of these type of divisions with a team that you know for a fact. So here I go with mine. For me, I'm going to go with the Cubs as well. I think they have the pieces. I mean, Justin Steele, Colin Ray, Tyon, Javier Assad, Ben Brown. I mean, nothing special, but it's not bad. I think it's going to be good enough. They also have Nate Pearson in the back end with Ryan Presley. I think that's going to help a lot in their bullpen. And also they got Matt Boyd, and they also have Shota Imanaga. Obviously Imanaga and Steele with Tyon, I think is good 1 through 3. And then you obviously, I think Dansby Swanson, obviously in their position group, didn't have a great year last year, but it wasn't awful. I think it'd be a lot better this year. Nico Horner, if they don't trade him, because I know there's a lot of trade talk right now with Nico Horner, but Horner obviously was a good piece. Adding Kyle Tucker was massive, though. Tucker is obviously a guy that brings a ton of postseason experience, and you put him in with around guys like Seiya Suzuki, Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ. They got something really going great for them over in Chicago. So I got them at 1. For 2, I'm going to go with the Brewers. I know, obviously, this is kind of more of a gamble pick than anything, but I do think that they always kind of, like you were talking about the Cardinals. I feel, the Brewers, they're always a great regular season team. Like, regardless. I thought that last year, without Corbin Burns, they were going to obviously kind of fall off a lot more, but they were still within reach. They brought in your guy Nestor. They have Myers and the starting group with Freddie Peralta, and guys like who kind of came in. They're scrappy. I think they're more of a scrappy team. They also have Aaron Savali too. I think is a really underrated move. But they have Jory Ortiz. William Contreras is obviously one of the best catchers in the game. Jackson Churio, who obviously really broke out last year, really impressive player. Bryce Terrain, obviously very scrappy. Bruce Hoskins. They have a group of guys that can scrap, and I think that's kind of the reason why I have them at 2. For 3rd, I got the Reds. I think that the Reds do with Terry Francona. I think that they get a lot better this year. Ellie De La Cruz obviously is one of the most electrifying players in the league. You got, in terms of rotation, you obviously had Braden Senior, really good pitcher there. Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green. Really good young talent over there. They also had Taylor Rogers in their back end for the bullpen. Should help out a lot, the submarine arm guy. And then, Tyler Stevenson with Torino, obviously, like you mentioned. Austin Hayes they brought in, who could obviously help out as well, too. So, the Reds under Francona. I hope Tito does well with them. I'm going to have them at 3rd. And then for me, this is where I switch up. I'm going to have the Pirates in 4th. I think that the Pirates, specifically to me, are very Washington National-like in terms of their overall rebuild, and I think that they're going to have a much better year this year. Paul Skeens obviously is going to have another great year. I believe Jared Jones, really love his stuff. His stuff is absolutely disgusting, but it kind of gets overlooked by Paul Skeens. And they brought some pieces in, some veteran pieces. I feel like last year the Pirates didn't have a lot of veteran pieces, that can kind of keep them competitive. But I have them at 4th, and then I do have the Cardinals in last. I just think specifically to me that their run is getting closer and closer to an end. They do have some great young pieces coming in, but I think it's going to take them some time. Wouldn't be shocked specifically if they're one of my sellers this year. Brennan Donovan, obviously Mason Wynn is obviously a great player. He'll be there long term. But yeah, Brendan Donovan, wouldn't be shocked if, teams that calls on guys like Sonny Gray, Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz. Ryan Helsley's name has obviously also been in trade conversations as of right now. So I just think that their time is coming to an end, Ryan. I mean, obviously Arenado's leaving. Goldschmidt's already gone. Wilson Contreras is obviously not the same guy. So and Nootbaar and Walker, like they have pieces. Don't get me wrong, but I think that they have a couple of guys that are aging. There's some others that are kind of taking. It's going to take some time for me. So I got the Cubs at 1, the Brewers at 2, the Reds at 3, the Pirates at 4, and then the Cardinals in the last.
I can see that too. You make some good points there, especially when it comes to the Pirates and the Cardinals. NL Central is always, I feel, the most challenging division to predict every single season. I mean, because teams are just constantly switching spots in the standings. Besides the division winner over the past couple of years, teams have just been going in different directions every single season. And it's been a while since a National League Central division team has won the World Series, not since the Cubs, obviously, in 2016. So it's always a mystery going into every single season. So we'll see how things play out there in the Central Division this season. And finally, we move to the National League West. National League West Division. I'll go over Pacoda's predictions first. So Pacoda has the defending world champion Dodgers winning the division again with a record of 103 wins and 59 losses. In second place, they have the Arizona Diamondbacks at 87 and 75. In third place, they have the Padres at 86 and 76. In fourth place, they have the Giants at 79 and 83. It's at 78 and 85. I'm sorry. And in last place, they have the Rockies at 55 and 107. So that's Pacoda's predictions. And my predictions are pretty much the same, honestly. I have the Dodgers winning division at 105 and 57. I have the Diamondbacks in second at 92 and 70. I have the Padres in third at 87 and 75. The Giants in fourth, but I'm giving them a winning record of 83 and 79. And I have the Rockies in last at 60 and 102. So some of the moves that have gone around in the NL West this year, obviously the Dodgers made more moves than anybody because they're the Dodgers. They basically completely revamped their team up again, getting ready to defend their world championship this season, bringing in guys like Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, Teoscar Hernandez, Tanner Scott, Clayton Kershaw, my mother, my father, my brother, everybody you could possibly imagine.
I was starting to do the count while you were talking.
Yeah, I know. They also if you want to resume, they also brought back Kike Hernandez and Blake Trinan. They also brought in Kirby Yates as well. So, yeah, the Dodgers have made plenty of moves this offseason as in their quest to repeat as world champions. And they didn't really lose anybody either. The biggest names that they lost were Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty, and Gavin Lux, which is nothing for them. They will be just fine without any of those three people.
Brazier.
Do I really need to go into depth about the Dodgers and how good they are? I don't think I really need to. No. They have 3 generational talents. They brought in Roki Sasaki and Blake Snell, like I mentioned, to help solidify that rotation. The Dodgers are going to win that division with ease, if you ask me. I don't think they should. I don't think they'll be challenged. I don't think they'll be challenged that much during the regular season. May have a few hiccups here and there, but the Dodgers, no doubt, are going to be just fine. So no need to really dive into them. The Diamondbacks, obviously, they brought in Corbin Burns for a 6-year deal. I really think that's a big move for them, and I think that's going to bring them back into the postseason picture. They really needed some help with that rotation because that rotation was just plagued with injuries last season. But I think bringing Corbin Burns in and having him in that rotation with guys like Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, I think that helps them out there. the Diamondbacks also brought Josh Naylor in from Cleveland. Naylor's always been a solid bat. And they also, the Diamondbacks also re-signed veteran outfielder Randall Grichuk to a 1-year deal. So I think the Diamondbacks will have a better season this year than they did last year. They didn't have a bad year last year, but it took them a while to get going. By the time they got going, it was too little too late. And obviously, it was out of their control when the Braves and the Mets were facing each other in that 2-game doubleheader on the final day of the season. They finished in a tie with the Braves, but because the Braves had to beat them in the regular season series, they missed the playoffs. So I think the Diamondbacks, though, are going to have a relatively good year. They did lose some big pieces, though. They lost Christian Walker. They lost Jock Peterson, Josh Newman, Kevin Newman, Josh Bell. So their offense might take a little bit of a step back this year, but I still like I think Corbin Carroll is going to have a bounce back year. He kind of had a sophomore slump in 24, but I think he'll have a better year this year than last year. Obviously, they still got Ketel Marte, and Eugenio Suarez is also a solid bat as well. So I think the Diamondbacks are going to have a good year, though, regardless. I said that the Padres will finish in 3rd place this season. Padres, they lost a couple of big pieces. They lost Tanner Scott to the division rival Dodgers, like I mentioned. They lost Jurickson Profar. Ha-Sung Kim signed with the Rays. They lost Kyle Higashioka, Martin Perez, and Donovan Solano. However, they signed your boy Nick Pivetta to a 4-year contract. They signed Elias Diaz. They also signed veteran outfielder Jason Hayward and first baseman Connor Joe. But the Padres, I think, are still going to have, a good year. I think they'll probably be in contention. Well, I think anybody other than the Dodgers is going to be in contention for a wild card spot in the National League West this year. Obviously, you can't sleep on that offense. I think it's still a loaded offense. You got to watch out for guys like Machado and Tatis. And I mean, those two are going to be the catalyst for that offense going into this season. So, the Padres, I think, will still be good, but this is going to be a tough year, I think. And I think they're going to be facing some adversity this season. So we'll see how it works out for them. In 4th place, I said the Giants. The Giants, they brought in Willie Adames, which is, a huge deal. And they also brought in Justin Verlander. I think this could, I don't know how many more years Verlander has in the tank, and I don't know what you're going to get out of him necessarily. But playing in a pitcher-friendly ballpark like San Francisco, I think he could have a decent year. And Verlander is a veteran; he knows what to do. And like I said, Adonis is a very good pickup for them. So the Giants, I think, they'll have a good year. I'll give them, like I said, I gave them 83 wins. I don't think they'll be a playoff team, but I think they'll be respectable. And lastly are the Rockies, who are the perennial cellar dwellers of the National League West nowadays. They really didn't do anything this offseason. They signed Jacob Stallings, Kyle Farmer, and Thairo Estrada. That's basically it. There's no hope in Colorado. Their World Series aspirations, or their realistic expectation to reach the World Series is as high as the altitude in Colorado. So there's nothing to look forward to there. So, yes, the National League West, Dodgers in 1st, Diamondbacks in 2nd, Padres in 3rd, Giants in 4th, and Rockies in last.
All right. We're going to be agreeing a lot more on this one, and I think deservedly so. You mentioned, Ryan, the Dodgers, right? A lot of times when you win the World Series, you typically have a hangover the next year. The Dodgers are going to be having more of the other way around, and they're specifically becoming the new evil empire that we're looking at to this day. Everybody specifically is going to be talking about them this year and the ruined baseball crowd, this and that, but at the end of the day, you got to respect what they did. They were loaded and they got better. They specifically saw a couple of years ago that they didn't have enough pitching in the postseason, and Andrew Freeman is going on an absolute barrage. Obviously they got Yamamoto last year. They added Roki Sasaki this year to help out a lot too. Shohei Ohtani is going to be able to pitch this year too. Obviously, Shohei had one of the most incredible seasons of last year, on top of what's been a great run so far for Shohei. Obviously, Mookie's there. Kike came back. Tanner Scott, one of the most coveted free agent arms on the relief part of the market. Kirby Yates. Right. They have like two closers that could be, two specific back end arms that could be closers on any team. And then they got Michael Kopech. It's just absolutely insane. I mean, Dustin May is like their number 7th, 8th guy. Dustin May, when he is healthy, when he has a great arm, and he is not. I mean, I hope that he can stay healthy here and there, because this stuff, Ryan, is gross, and he's not even in the rotation. Emmett Sheehan, him as well too. Very similar. Like, their rotation is absolutely loaded. Even in their backups are loaded too. So I have the Dodgers at number 1. That shouldn't be a debate. And if you want to have the debate, just like Ichiro Suzuki, for the person specific that didn't vote for Ichiro, we can have a talk on the end of the show. Number 2 is going to be the Diamondbacks. Corbin Burns, I think, really just added an element to the rotation. Zach Gallen is going to be a free agent next year, so I think he's going to be pitching really well in a free agent year. And then they also added Josh Naylor to replace Christian Walker. I really do like that replacement piece for them. A lot of times when you lose a piece like that, it's really hard to replicate. Naylor's a very good first baseman, really good bat. So I really like that for them. Ketel Marte is obviously still there. Suarez, Gabe Moreno, Corbin Carroll. Great niche group that's going to be there for a long term. Really love what the Diamondbacks have been doing. And it's great to see them be competitive too. They were so bad, Ryan, for so long. And they're really coming into that next level of relevancy. It's really awesome to see. So I got the Diamondbacks at 2. And then the Padres. The Padres are probably going to be in like the high 80s. I can't rule them out. Like, they, to me specifically, still have a lot going for them. It's interesting. They feel like they could either be buyers at the deadline this year or be sellers. It's kind of like no in between. They could really move on from guys like Kier Calls and guys like Tatis, Machado, because obviously they're going through that Bally Sports situation over there. Obviously, Michael Cain and Dylan Cease have been the 2 guys specifically in trade talks right now. They have a ton of drama right now specifically, but I think that their talent's going to be still really solid. So with that, I mean, they obviously still have Suarez as their closer, but right now, Darvish, Cease, Kane, Musgrove. Obviously, like yesterday, they brought in Nicky P. And just still have a really good group in terms of guys: Jackson Merrill, Tatis, Luis Arraez, Xander. So they're going to be still up there. But obviously, when you have the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks doing what they're doing, it's really hard for me to put the Padres over either of these 2 teams. And then the Giants, like you mentioned, the Giants can potentially sneak in, but with these other 3 teams ahead of them, I just can't put them specifically in that same class either. Justin Verlander should be a fine piece. He's obviously up there in age. For him to be their number 2 pitcher behind Logan Webb, though, it's just asking a lot specifically. I mean, I like Verlander a lot. I do hope that he does well. And maybe too, like you mentioned, that he is in a pitcher's park now, so that should help some as well there too. Jonah Hill, Lee did miss like the second half of last year. Lee obviously came last year, did a really good job for them. Obviously Chapman and Adames, they should have a very fun left-hand side of the field, at least defensively. Patrick Bailey's obviously a very good catcher. I just don't really, their offense, it doesn't really just scream out to me for some odd reason, especially when you're playing a really good division with really good arms in there. And then obviously the Rockies are the White Sox of the National League. They're pretty much just in the basement dwellers, and they'll be for a long period of time. They're more worried about trying to unload the absolute atrocious contract of Chris Bryant more than winning baseball games. So that is that. So I got the Dodgers at 1, the Diamondbacks at 2, the Padres at 3, the Giants at 4, and the Rockies at 5.
Yeah, as to where I said I wouldn't be surprised if either of our predictions were true. Like, in other words, I wouldn't be surprised if you were right in the National League Central, because we had differences in the NL Central and the NL East.
Mhm.
When I said I didn't think you would, I wouldn't be surprised if you were right and I was wrong. I would be shocked if either of us were wrong with the NL West this season. I guess maybe the Padres or the Diamondbacks could maybe flip
Yeah,
flop.
at least
But
the winner though.
yeah, but if the Dodgers don't win the NL West, I think, I mean, that would be one of the biggest surprises in baseball history. But like I said, I don't think that's going to
It's
happen.
they have a ton of arms that have injury risk, Ryan. But the crazy part is a lot of their guys on their bench, specifically bench, have gross stuff.
Yep.
So it's like they're not going to miss a beat at all. Their depth is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. It's they're going to be a force, no doubt about it. And I mean, you can make the argument here that they could be, of all the teams to try and defend their championship, you can make the argument that they have the best chance of successfully defending their championship this year. And become the first repeat champion since the Yankees from that three-peat from '98 to 2000, all those years ago. I mean, a lot of teams, have, obviously the closest anybody has come to repeating as world champions were probably the 08-09 Phillies. Because the Phillies made it back to the World Series, obviously, as the defending champions, and they took the Yankees to 6 games. So, no one really has come close since then. I mean, a lot of these teams, have had World Series hangovers. I mean, just look at the Rangers last year. I know they had some injuries, but the Rangers were nowhere close to the team that they were last year compared to 2023. And it's definitely harder now to repeat as world champions than it ever has been, because obviously you got the expanded wild card rounds, and it's just hard. It's just very, very hard, and anybody can be beaten on any given day nowadays when it comes to the playoffs. So it'll be interesting. A lot of eyes will be on the Dodgers this year, but I think they'll be just fine. I do. If I had to do an early World Series prediction, I don't know the American League representative necessarily, but I would feel pretty confident and comfortable taking the Dodgers for the National League pennant winners again this season. I just think it's going to be a tough battle for anybody in baseball this season when it comes to the Dodgers. Last week, we also talked about our predictions for AL MVP, AL Cy Young, Rookie of the Year. So I might as well do the same thing for the National League this year. For this year in the National League, for my National League most valuable player, for me, I'm going to go Manny Machado. Manny Machado, he's a veteran. Right. I think he's going to have a good year. I know the Padres are definitely going to need him to be the leader of that team, the veteran presence, and I think he's going to rise to the occasion. I think the Padres will stick around. If based on my projected standings this season, I had them at 87 and 75, which would be good enough to give them a wild card spot. I think that would give them the final wild card spot in the playoffs. Or actually, no, it would make them miss just by like one game. But I would say they would be fighting. I'll say they're going to fight for a playoff spot this year on the backs of Manny Machado. I think he's going to lead that team. An MVP award is like one missing piece of personal accolades from his resume. And I think he gets that. I think he checks that box off this season. Either him, or I could also see Tatis winning it. But I'm going to go. I think the National League Most Valuable Player Award is going to be coming to San Diego this year. I'm going to give it to Machado. For the National League Cy Young Award this year, I'm going to go Zach Wheeler of the Phillies. I think Wheeler is a very solid pitcher. He's been a solid pitcher for a long time, and I think he's finally going to get his flowers this year, and I think he's going to get the Cy Young, and I think he's going to be the anchor of that Philly rotation. So I'll go NL Cy Young I'll give to Wheeler. And finally, NL Rookie of the Year. For the hell of it, I'm going to go Sasaki, because why not? Saki's solid. I think he'll have a nice year. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he went down at some point with an injury, because he's so thin. So I wouldn't be surprised if he experiences some arm fatigue at some point during the season, and the Dodgers had to skip a start or two for him. My NL predictions, like I mentioned, Machado NL MVP, Zach Wheeler NL Cy Young, and Roki Sasaki NL Rookie of the Year.
Okay, so for me, my NL MVP, and this is a guy specifically that I believe has won it before in the past. Correct me if I'm wrong if I haven't been, but it's a guy specifically that brings a ton of swag. I'll probably give it away specifically if it's the team, so I'm not going to give you that. But guy's a 5-tool player. He's a stud. Plays in the now the Atlanta Braves, and that is Ronald Acuna Jr. That is my MVP.
He won it in 23.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. I was going to say
that was the 74. That was his 40-70 season.
Man, it's really hard to bet against Ronald Acuna. Just everything that he does, and I think specifically, especially coming off of another injury-specific type of year, I think that he's in for absolute resurgence for the Braves, and I think that he's going to be a massive reason why they're back in the playoffs. So I mean, for me, it's going to be Ronald Acuna. NL Cy Young, Cy Young, I was going to go Sale because obviously he won it last year, but I'm not going to do that. I mean, I could, but I want to try something different here. Even though actually it's going to be tough. I do have a couple other ones. I mean, you mentioned Wheeler, which I think is a very, very good one.
Last year I had Zach Gallen. He was my pick. But,
this one? I'm going to go on a wild card with this one. And it's specifically a guy that I think is going to do really, really well there. And I think a lot of people are going to hate it for it. It's another southpaw. I picked Blake Snell.
That would be his third Cy Young award if he were to win it again this year.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of boring right now currently with the picks, but I think everybody's talking about Sasaki, Yamamoto, but Blake Snell and that rotation as well too. Just him going still in the NL West. He knows that division really well. So I'm gonna go Blake Snell. I that's kind of it's one to me specific one, but I'm going different. And then my NL Rookie of the Year. This was a guy that actually came in last year. And I think he's going to really help this team get specifically to that next step specifically for them. And that's Dylan Kruse from the Washington Nationals. I think that Kruse specifically had some pretty respectful numbers last year, but he came in halfway through the year and he just wasn't able to put a full season about it. Very similar to like what I mentioned last week with Jackson Holiday. Obviously, Kruse didn't get demoted or anything like that, but I think that he's just an absolute mainstay for the Nationals. He's up there specifically in that lineup, and I think that you're just going to get a ton of production specifically from him this year. So I have him for Rookie of the Year. I was going to go with Sasaki, but I want to be different specifically in terms of the picks because that's why it makes it fun. I'm going to go Ronald Acuna as my MVP, Blake Snell as my Cy Young, and Dylan Kruse specifically as my Rookie of the Year.
I like the Kruse pick for a Rookie of the Year. I completely forgot about him. I think it's a very good. Choice. There's another guy. There's another guy on the Nationals. I forget his name. Who's that?
James Wood.
Yeah, Wood. Wood could also. I could also see Wood putting up a good year and fighting for that Rookie of the Year award. I also last week I know in our previous episode we also talked about comeback player of the year. If I had to choose that, maybe I'll give Acuna comeback player of the year.
For me, I don't know. Go ahead. I don't know if you had anything.
I was just about to say I just don't know when Acuna is coming back. I mean, I don't know if is he going to be ready for opening day or is he?
I think he should. I mean, I think that they would have probably said something by now if he hasn't been. I mean, we'll have to see specifically spring training. Maybe that they limit that, but Brian Snicker had a report about him yesterday for him and Strider, but I don't think the Braves are going to rush him back, but I think they'll be ready for opening day.
All right, yeah. But if I had to do an NL comeback player of the year, I'd give it to Acuna.
I'm going to go Strider. I think that's Spencer Strider. Obviously, last year, started for most of the year. And, yeah, so I'm going to go with Strider.
All right. Well, Nick Morrison just messaged us that the Braves GM said he won't be ready for opening day.
Okay. Well, you listen. He'll be as long as they specifically can kind of tremble water. Is that, I guess, the right term for it? Yeah, I guess. They'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Acuna will have a good year regardless, despite coming back from another serious ACL injury. But yeah, those are our National League predictions for 2025. And spring training games are going to start very soon. And we'll be back relatively soon and talk about some things that we like and don't like when it comes to these spring training games. And yeah, like I said, the regular season is it's right around the corner, and we're looking forward to it all. So on behalf of Ben Kruse, I'm Ryan Touhey. Take care.